Welcome to the Keith B. Dixon Zone, dropping photography knowledge all day long. Right?
Dun, 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 dun. Every time I hear that intro, it always reminds me of my old live stream that I used to do daily on Periscope. Anyway, welcome to the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone podcast broadcast. You guys, we are here. This is where it goes down, where photography meets real life. Pro photography meets real life. Because I'm going to keep it real with you. Today, we're going to talk about printing your own work. And I got to tell you, if you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You got to print your work, you guys. There are a ton of labs out there. I use White House Custom Color. It's one of my favorite labs, have been for years. And anytime I need an enlargement, anything over typically a 6x8, because most of the 5x7s and smaller prints I'm just doing in the house. And that's a whole nother podcast. It really is, because you guys know I'm a DMP ambassador. So I have a bunch of DMP printers and I just print them up and frame them up and we're off and rolling. So we're not going to go down that path just yet, but we're definitely going to be talking about what you can do just in the immediate if you don't have a printer that prints high quality images. So look, I got a couple things to share with you before we dive into this topic. I'm going to keep you about 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops. It just kind of depends on whether or not I go down the wormhole on a topic, but we're going to get up out of here pretty quick. So look, for the last week, it's been a busy week for me, shooting jobs, mostly interiors. I do a lot of interiors now. I do have events and commercial and portrait work that I do. It's pretty substantial, so that happens once or twice a month, but a majority of my work now is definitely interiors and exteriors, and that's a primary focus. It's intentional. What I wanted to share with you is I actually been working on a new website for the podcast, and I've made a platform change. I'm in the process of making a platform change. I want to have more control over how my podcast is getting out there organically. So I'm making these changes and it's going pretty smoothly. The support factor, it has been great on the website part. And if you're looking for it down the road, it's going to be podcast.keithbdixon.online. That's where the podcast is going to live. And then Keith B. Dixon Online will be a website. So it's just, Keith B. Dixon Online is just kind of all encompassing of everything that I'm going to do, photography, live streaming. But right now we're going to launch, I'm hoping by next week, because it's been a doozy getting the technology together. Hopefully we'll launch that podcast.keithbdixon.online. I've been working a lot of interior assignments, so I got a lot to share about that, because I've actually made some adjustments and changes in the way that I photograph properties, and it's just purely out of growing and growth. So I'm going to be sharing that with you. And how do you crack that market? It's a tough one. It's probably one of the toughest ones I've ever been a part of. And I've worked with agencies and all kind of marketing firms, just everything, PR firms. Working with real estate agents is very difficult, not in a bad way, but in a way that they're hard to reach. They're just hard to reach. And once they lock on to a vendor that works for them, they don't change. And that's the thing, because you get ingrained in their process and their workflow and they're comfortable. They just don't change. So, and that can also be a little tricky. Now, look, you guys know I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and traffic here is off the charts. It really is. Traffic is horrible. Matter of fact, I just got in from a shoot. It was an hour drive one way, so that's 2 hours of my time, and then 90 minutes on the location. I literally got in there and I was cranking because I needed to get out of there, because now I'm down 3.5 hours on this job. That kind of process affects your profitability, because for those 2 hours, I could have been doing something else more productive. But instead, I was sitting in traffic. Now, typically, I try to return phone calls. If you've ever talked to me on the phone, maybe you've caught on that I'm in the car. That's when I try to return phone calls and make contact with people, because it's really dead time. There's not a lot I can do. So you got to think about your profitability in a job as you move forward. in terms of traffic. Do you charge that to the client? I don't think it's fair to charge it to the client in some cases, especially like this. The profit margin is low, the price point is low. You're not going to be able to do it. But if you have a good price point, I think you can probably work that in some kind of way without really telling the client you're charging them for travel. For me, mentioning I'm charging you for travel is a wormhole. Matter of fact, I think it's something that might get you disqualified out of a bid. So typically I don't bring up that unless there's some airplane travel or overnight travel, something along those lines where we have to, then, you have to factor that in. So that would be the exception. So I wanted to just mention that today and let you know, because not only on top of that 3.5 hours that I just did, I've got to spend another hour, depending on how fast I work through the edits, another hour editing and uploading those same images. So now I'm at 4.5 hours for a job. And you guys, typically I like to make on these particular residential interior jobs. This was a small condo. I typically, for me, in my pocket, I like to make between $50 and $60 an hour in my pocket. That's what I'm going to pay myself for that one job. So if I can't achieve that, then I'm either going to have to drop my salary or figure out another way. Because remember what we talked about last week in terms of scaling your cost and your profits and your revenues. So I have to go back and rethink that, or rethink the times. And sometimes it might be a great time to travel to the job, but it may not be a great time to shoot the property. And that's something you got to think about. All right, let's move forward. So today I want to talk about hanging your work up in your house. I know a lot of you photographers listening to this podcast right now probably have some work that is definitely worth hanging on your wall. And it's probably not. You know what happens typically? We go out and we make images and we put them on our computer screens. We have them on our phones and our tablets and all these other devices. And then when they're not visible, they're not remembered, they're not inspirational. You just don't even see them until someone asks you about your work or your portfolio. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because in my opinion, this is spiritual and this is all opinion based, because you know what? I'm not going to get into the whole technical profit margin printing, I want to get into more of the mental part of this. And that's what we're going to do. You know what? When it's hanging on the wall and you see it every single day, it makes you think about being a photographer every single day. Every single day you get to relive a moment that you made while you were doing and creating that image. I got to tell you, it's a powerful thing. I have images everywhere in my house, literally. Matter of fact, I'm going to take some stuff off the wall. There's some mirrors that was on the wall. I'm taking those out so I can put in enlargements. That's how important it is. Matter of fact, every image in my house is strategic. There's a family wall. There's a wall where when I first started teaching, and my students that took my classes, if they were super successful, when I mean super successful, they couldn't even turn the camera on, and now they're printing their images. Those are the students that actually gave me prints, and those are hanging on the wall. So that's inspirational, because when I walk by, it's a constant reminder of me and my teaching skill set. Let me repeat that. When I walk by and I look at those images that my students made, it is a constant reminder of my skill set, because I had to instruct them to do it. And that's where the rubber meets the road. Now, let's say you're not a teacher. Okay, you're not a teacher, but you're a photographer. Let me sidebar. I call it a sidebar. I used to do that on my live streams. Let me sidebar for a quick second. At the lowest point in my photography career, I shot some of my best work. It really represented where I was. Now, if I had shot that work and just left it buried on my computer somewhere, I wouldn't know how significant it was. But you know why it's significant? You know why I can talk about it right now? Because in my bedroom, at the foot of my bed, hanging on the wall next to the TV that's mounted, are photographs that I shot at my lowest point. And you know what? You know what's interesting? They represented light and shadow because I was in a dark place. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I was in a dark place. I was thinking about quitting photography and getting a regular job. Nothing was going right. I had surgery that year. There was just a lot of things going wrong. And those images represented that. One is called Cracked View. I have an image called Cracked View. And it's just the borders. It's like a frame within a frame of some lady walking across the street, avoiding getting, run over by a taxi cab, literally. And I was up underneath these trees and I just underexposed, and it created this cracked look. And every morning that I wake up and I'm feeling some kind of way and I see that, I know that's where I came from emotionally. And that's what's powerful about seeing your work on the wall. I was in the Hawaiian Islands and there was this eruption, and I've got this image of this volcano. And I could remember the park ranger saying, we're getting ready to close the park because it's getting hard to breathe out here, and because of the sulfur. They had just had an eruption. And the only thing that I thought about, and this is insane, you guys, you know what my response to that was? Let me just get 10 minutes. Let me get 10 minutes. I just want to catch this lava flow. Literally, the guy just looked at me like, are you nuts? And he was like, okay, go ahead. Because he saw the camera gear and he knew what it meant. And it was pretty tough to breathe. We're up pretty high too. That was the other thing. We had drove up this mountain, and it was so dark out there. I had to use a flashlight to even get the camera to focus. And I had this spotlight on my head and making this image. Every time that I'm sitting on my couch and I look up and I see that image, I relive that experience. Like, I really did some things. What am I going to do next? And that's usually the question that I ask myself. What am I going to do to topple what I did? How am I going to be inspired? And that's the importance, you guys, of hanging your work. Now, most all of us, we love a good party, you guys. We do. I do. Everybody loves a party. Imagine throwing a party at your house. Imagine throwing a party at your house and you invite your friends over and you just happen to make little signs with the name of your images and a small price. Now, you're in your house, so I know you're going to have access to some type of credit card input device or whatever you use, Square or whatever they're using, PayPal, right? So that's automatic. Guess what? I've sold more work that way than I have any other way. People come in and they see the images on the wall. And it's like, I want that for my hallway. I want that for my bathroom. I want that for this. Keith, how much is it? And the price is right there. Literally, you can call it a picture party. Literally. And I got to tell you, I've sold more work that way. So when you're thinking about your work, we have two things. It emotionally charges you, and it's hanging on your wall. That work is going to create. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say it's money hanging on the wall, because I was going to say it can create revenue. No, it is money hanging on the wall. Now, there are a lot of other options. There's coffee shops you can hang your work in. And my thing about, I've done that as well. My thing about coffee shops is you can't see people's feedback, people that are coming in on a regular basis. Now, when you have your gallery launch day where you invite people in, and the people from the coffee shop, the locals are coming in and they see your work, yeah, you'll be able to really kind of get a feel then. But the people that normally come in there on a regular basis, that aren't going to show up for that, you're never going to really see their feedback, their reaction. So although it's a good thing to do, it's nothing like having a party at your house. And with that intention is, hey, I'm having a photo party. I'm having a portrait party, a landscape party at my house. You are cordially invited. We have free food and drinks. People come out for that kind of stuff, especially on a weekend, and they don't have to spend any money. That's the they don't have to spend any money on food. That's the thing. That's what gets them in. And you make it affordable. So let's say they don't want to buy something on the wall. You just offer, you get your DMP printer. By the way, disclosure, I'm a DMP ambassador. You get your DMP printer. You print up some 6x8s, 5x7s. 4x6s, I don't typically do 4x6s, but you could use those as party favors. And you could literally put them in a plastic sleeve and say, hey, here's an image for you, because that's marketing, right? Maybe you put a little branding on there. I'm not a big fan of branding my photos, but if I was giving one away at a portrait party, I would probably do it just so they know where it came from. You know, you got to make people earn it a little bit, right? So that would be the marketing strategy. I just gave that one away, literally. And I know the ladies out there, the women photographer, I know you guys are probably like just got your hooks in on this, because typically when we do parties, it's usually the woman's ideal to do one, right? Especially something like this. And I got to tell you, it's a great way to create marketing. And if you can get people's email addresses then and say, hey, I'm going to email you every time I come out, if you like this party, you know, come on back. And then maybe they can bring a friend. It's a way to network and market. So look, what does printing really mean to me, right? Without all the clutter and the tech and this and that and all the things you hear people typically say online. What does it mean? For me, it's a gauge. Printing my photos and seeing them on the wall is a gauge of how good I am as a photographer. Not how good other people say I am, but what does that image say? Because you know what, I've done a little homework and on the technical part. You know, I've been out here a long time, 23 years. And I can look up on that wall and know that that is a good quality image, because one, it's enlarged, it's hanging on the wall. Hopefully I've got it in a good spot where the light is good and it just fits into the space. Yeah, those are all the little technical things, but that is key for me. Like, can I print that? I shot that image and I processed it, but can I print it? And is the print gonna look just like it looks on the screen in terms of light, color, contrast, shadowing, the brightness, the hues, all those things that we think about as photographers? Is it being replicated in that print? Let me tell you, there is nothing more inspirational. And I got to tell you, when people come by my house and they see, you know, some of the canvases I've done hanging on the wall, I love this. This is the comment I get. Is that a painting? They're in question as to whether or not it's real. Can you imagine that? Now, I used to print at this lab over in Germany, and it's kind of expensive, right? And they did really good canvases. That was their thing. If your file was good, it was great on canvas. They work with a lot of art galleries, major art galleries, and I would send my stuff over there, and you know, what you see is what you get. So garbage in, garbage out. The first canvas I did was a disaster. It really was. It was a total disaster. So, you know, I got it together and I shot this image in San Juan, Puerto Rico, of Ode San Juan, and hung it on the wall. And I got to tell you, when I first got the image, I was like, yes, this is spot on. And okay, let me see how it measures up when people come in and see it. And that's generally the response I get. You know, people are looking like, that's actually a photograph. That's how clean it was. When I say clean, you know, there's nothing blown out, nothing underexposed, everything's in focus. It was a very clean image. And that's important. Even I have some images that I made in Seattle, same thing. Let me sidebar. It is so easy to overprocess images, you know, and one of the things I learned from a lot of photographers that I mentored with is you just sprinkle your edits on. Sprinkle your edits on, you guys. Don't get into just pushing, you know, all the color and, you know, I'm not even going to waste time on that. Don't get into over processing your image. I'm a big fan of organic. Let the image live the way it's supposed to live. You know, yeah, we got to do a little editing and cropping and things we got to do, but let the image live. as it is in a lot of cases, especially if you're a street photographer. You don't need to do that. Do the work in camera. That's what I appreciate about doing street photography and landscapes. I let the image live the way it's supposed to live, you know? And if you're going to do some edits, edit for the print. Don't edit for the look, edit for the print, because that's where ultimately you're going to be able to tell just how good your edit is. So, ooh, that was a lot. We've been on here about 20 minutes, and I feel like I could go about 30, 40 more minutes. There's so much. Anyway, I'm going to finish up on these two topics, and the last two topics, making money off of the work that you shoot. If I knew the answer, I'd be teaching seminars all across America on how to sell work and make money off of it. You know, it's really, I'm going to tell you, it's kind of subjective. You know, it depends on your market, who you are, how many people you actually know that are interested in what you do. I mean, there's so many factors that go into this outside of the traditional things that you think you should be doing. I mean, it really is. One of my students shot some images of Detroit, and I think she sold about 3 of them so far. And the cost, I think her cost was over. I know she was getting more than $300 for them. But there's some enlargements that she made of Detroit, and she's been selling them. And I think that's amazing. You know, if you walked up to her and say, how'd you do it? Her process is not going to be on the books. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to be on the books. She sold them to people that she knew. She listened to some of the podcasts, or actually, when I was doing the 90 PT, I talked about selling images, and she was in the 90 PT program, and literally just followed some of those steps and sprinkled in her own stuff. And next thing you know, she's like, Keith, I just sold 2 more of those Detroit images. So if you're looking at a way, if I had to tell you, and you're looking for a way, the thing that I would say is focus on people that you know first. Don't go to the external markets yet. Focus on your sphere of influence. And this is something that I used to talk about all the time. Focus on your sphere of influence, people you know, family members. One of the things that I love to do for Christmas is give people images. They're marketing tools, because when other people come over their house and it's like, where'd you get that photo from? Oh, my dad's a photographer. Do you think he would sell me that image? I can't tell you how many times that's went down for me. People coming in the house, hey, I'd like that. Matter of fact, I have a shot of the Golden Gate Bridge Tower, and it's a light and shadow photo, and there's this, I underexposed this tree branch. Didn't have leaves on it, it's just like a branch, and it's underexposed, and the tower is slightly exposed in the background. They're overlapping. It's a juxtaposition and a contrast, and that photo does very well. I usually sell like 1 or 2 a year. It's not significant. It's not like I'm making a living off of it, but it's generating money. And when I think about the money that it's actually generating, this is how I process that. If I was out there 2 hours, right? If I was out there 2 hours and I was paying myself $100 an hour, how much could I sell that image for to cover that time that I was out there? And then the processing. Maybe it took me an hour. I worked an hour consistently on the process, so 3 hours. I want to sell 1 image to cover my cost. And then I'm happy. Because if you profit in our world, hey, that's profits are luxuries, right? The name of the game is to cover your cost. And if you can profit, great. But the name of the game really is to break even. And if you focus on breaking even, then you can, and you actually do it, then you can focus on how to become more profitable. And that's just my thinking. You know, everybody has a different way of doing things. And there's more than one way to do anything. It's like using Photoshop, you know. There's more than one way to mask an image. So you have to do what ultimately works the best for you. And that's what I would recommend. I'm sharing kind of how I think about it, because here's another sidebar coming. When I lost 45 pounds, so there's a million ways to do things. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. right? If there's a million ways to do things, what works for you? Because when I was on my weight loss journey, I mean, you got people there's so many different stories and processes and things. And, when I looked at it, I was like, these are all probably work, but what can I stick to? And why have I failed in the past? And you know what the answer was? I just wasn't mentally ready. So my weight loss journey was more about mental, like being mentally prepared to do what I needed to do and what fit into my lifestyle. Like, I'm not a guy that can go to a 5 p.m. class every day, right? Because if I'm traveling, it's just not going to be possible to be missing time. My process became, what can I do consistently all the time? What can I do consistently all the time? Well, you can walk, right? You can walk anytime. And I'm sidebarring here because I want you guys to understand the mental process of everything that I'm telling you. On my Apple Watch, I have the rings, and funny thing, there's some people that I share with, and we focus on closing the rings. That's what we do, closing the rings. Some of us do it better than others, and you know who you are. Some of us do it better than others, and more consistently, I try to close mine as much as possible. I think the challenge is just the stand goal. But without going down that whole thing, I want you guys to understand the importance of the mindset. And if you think about Prince this way, if you think about it mentally, you'll be able to get it done. Period. I mean, then you can dive into all the technical stuff. There's all kind of technical gurus out there. I mean, I'm pretty good. I wouldn't call myself a technical guru, but, and I don't even know if that even matters, because ultimately it comes down to, can you make some money? Right. So I don't know if the technical guru even helps. It does help. I don't know if it helps to that extent where just because you're a technical guru, you're going to make a ton of money. You got to be innovative and creative in terms of how you approach this. Now, let me dive into this last topic because we're just about out of time here. And the last thing is a question. What should I be making? What type of images should I be making? And I didn't say shooting or photographing, making. You're going to make images. Well, there are a lot of things you can do. But what I want you to really focus on, think about how you can create themes in your work. And on my last podcast, I actually used this example of being in an airplane and being in a car. You're going to see more when you're actually in a car. Now, both are moving at high rates of speed, but you're closer to the ground. You're going to see the detail in the mountains. You're going to see this. You're going to see that. Yeah, you're going to see some great things from an airplane from 30,000 feet, but you're going to see more things. You're going to see more things on the ground. And what that means is typically we are moving through life so fast. We're moving at airplane speed. We don't see themes. We don't see connections. We don't see oddities. And that's the thing that you want to photograph. And it's not what other people are photographing. It's what you see. So what may be different is how you see it. We can get 10 people to photograph the same thing. They're going to get 10 different angles. Well, what's the angle for you? And that's the question. So, and there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of things. And I'm going to use this example because I kind of missed the boat on this one. Where I live, they're building a new city hall. And before that process started, there used to be this car wash on the corner, this major intersection. There's this car wash. They actually tore the car wash down, and now it's like a vacant lot. And then right across the street, they're going to build City Hall, new police station, all this kind of stuff. Now, if I was thinking and I was really doing my due diligence, I would have photographed that car wash there and that empty lot. And I'm still going to do it. I'm just going to photograph the empty lot. But it would have been great to get the car wash, right? Those are conversation pieces. Would they sell? I don't know if they would sell. But I know that they could contribute to the history of where I live. I live in South San Francisco. I know it would contribute to the history of it. And maybe I could loan those actual images to the city if they don't already have them. That's how you got to be thinking about it. And what you're doing is you're cementing your name into the history books that way. That was photographed by this photographer who lived here in South San Francisco. yada, yada, yada. And by the way, so there's San Francisco and then there's South San Francisco. And it's just right near, I live right near the airport. So the San Francisco airport. But unfortunately, the San Francisco airport is not really in San Francisco. It's actually in San Bruno, but it's owned obviously by the city of San Francisco. Well, that's an interesting story. So, yes. And just a little side note, maybe about 20 years ago, the San Francisco police didn't even police the airport. It was called SFO, San Francisco International Airport, and they didn't even have the San Francisco police out there. I think that was about 20 years ago. It's crazy. Anyway, it's a sidebar. So a lot of change has gone on in the Bay Area. I can remember when they first put in the rail system there, I got a friend of mine worked. He was an engineer, and he actually walked out on the tracks and made these images that will never, ever be made again. They'd have to shut down that whole system and then walk some people out there and make those photographs. And the reason why I'm saying this, they're never going to happen again, because they'd have to shut them down in midday. And I was out there over on the overpass, over 101, shooting down one. It was amazing. At the time, I just didn't even realize the opportunity that I had got. It was crazy, but I got the photos though. All right, that's all I have for you. So hang your work and be inspired by it. Hang your work in your house. Be inspired by it. Try to do some picture parties or some picture events, even if it's at a coffee shop. Maybe your house isn't the good place for it. Find a spot, rent out a spot, and hang your work and invite some of your people that you know. Invite people you know and ask them to invite people. Make it fun. Bring the kids. When people have their kids with them, they seem to spend more money anyway. When you hang your photos, use that as a gauge for yourself. If you really want to know how good your work is, print it, right? There's no better judge than yourself. When you see it hanging on the wall, if it's clean and sharp and shows well, you did a great job. You don't have to reach out to other people, and say, hey, what do you think it is? Right? Because when they come in, they're either going to buy it or not. So it's the quickest gauge. And here's my last 2 points. Think about it more in terms of how long you actually worked on it, and try to sell it for that price. That's definitely what I would say. And then last, what should you be making? Focus on themes. All right. Thank you for listening. I appreciate that. And you know what? I love podcasts. Guys for listening. I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe. Subscription, liking it, all that kind of stuff. Commenting and posting on Facebook. That really helps out. And I think DMP for sponsoring.
Say you wanna hear me call your name. Tell me that you want me, don't play that game. I'm not gonna wait here like a fool. There must be a way I can make you see that if we fell in love, you would be so sweet. But when it's you and me, nobody can bring us down, bring us down, can bring us down, bring us down, can bring us down, bring us down, can bring us down, bring us down. Bring us down, bring us down, can bring us down, bring us down. But I don't want to if you